You've worked hard enough. I'll take it from here, so go ahead and enjoy your unemployment. Suddenly, I was fired by my direct supervisor, Bill. This happened while I was diligently preparing for a major business deal. Unable to accept it, I protested several times, but the decision was irreversible. I explained the situation to Jason, who is my subordinate and partner on this project. Now that I've been fired, I had no choice but to entrust everything to him. But I couldn't just let it end like this. There is no way I would just accept unfair treatment and quietly suffer. Just you wait and see. On the way home, I muttered to myself, seething with frustration. My name is Kyle, a 31-year-old office worker. It has been a decent amount of time since I joined my current company. I work with my subordinates, who are all sincere and reliable people. They also seem to hold me in high regard, which makes every day enjoyable. I wish I could say there are no problems with the working environment, but there's just one thorn in my side, my direct supervisor, Bill. Bill, a high achiever, has a habit of flaunting his degree from a prestigious university, even in unrelated conversations. He is 32 years old, the same age as me, but his personality could be described as the complete opposite. No matter how inconsistent the conversation is, he adds, "Well, I graduated from a prestigious private university." At the end of conversation, he has a troublesome personality that becomes overtly grumpy when he is not praised for it. His pride is taller than the Empire State Building, and he generally looks down on others. He believes he is a person who naturally deserves respect. However, no one in the company actually likes him. It's no surprise, but Bill himself refuses to accept that fact. Apparently, he doesn't like me because I don't have a high degree compared to him, but I am admired by my subordinates. He has taken every opportunity to target me, showering me with sarcasm and insults. Most of it is so trivial that it's silly to even bother with. If I deliver good results at work, he accuses me of things like, "You must have bribed the client." That's something a low-educated person would think of doing. He vents his frustration of not being admired onto me, which is utterly unreasonable. It's almost like he's sick with a condition where he can't help but find fault. However, amid these unreasonable accusations, there were strangely some aspects of him that I could understand. Once, I secured a relatively large deal and was recognized within the company. Bill spoke condescendingly. "Your work is just mass-produced. Try to be more creative." Honestly, it was hardly an advice since it lacked specificity. But the words about being more creative strangely made sense to me. Regardless of Bill's intentions, I wanted to try it if there was a unique way I could do things. I decided to reevaluate my work style. I explored new sales techniques and studies I hadn't tried before to find an approach that felt right to me. Seeing my motivation sparked by his sarcastic remark, Bill seemed displeased. The frequency of his nitpicking about everything I did steadily increased. I forgot to mention that besides his high education, there's another reason he acts so superior at work. The person running the company is his relative. According to rumors, Bill himself landed the job through connections, as the company is owned by his relatives.
Want to see what happens when you defy me in this company, which is also owned by my relatives?
He'd threaten whenever a subordinate tried to voice an opinion. The more he acted this way, the less likely it was for anyone to admire him. Both my subordinates and other employees, including myself, spent our days troubled by Bill's behavior. During these challenging times, I successfully secured a major business deal. It might sound exaggerated, but it could be considered a major achievement since joining this company. Thinking it wouldn't be right to monopolize this opportunity, I decided to handle this project together with my former subordinate, Jason. It was a chance I grasped while still searching for my own working style in the dark. Determined to make it a success, I prepared meticulously. Thanks to regular meetings with the client, our relationship was in excellent shape. Together with Jason, I felt confident about our progress. However, that premonition was abruptly shattered. One day, as the critical business meeting approached, I was suddenly summoned by Bill. "Here you go. Take it." Without any explanation, he handed me a piece of paper. Wondering what this was about, I took it and checked the contents. It was a termination letter. Caught off guard by this sudden turn of events, I panicked slightly. Wait a minute. What did I do? Figure it out yourself. Even if he said that, I couldn't recall doing anything that would warrant being fired. Could anyone be satisfied with such an abrupt dismissal? I repeatedly asked Bill for an explanation. No matter how much I pressed, he kept evading the question. With the day of the big business deal approaching, this is unbelievable. Don't worry about the deal you secured. What? Provoking my confusion, Bill smirked sinisterly. What did he mean by not to worry? You've worked hard enough. I'll take it from here, so go ahead and enjoy your unemployment. After saying so, he walked away despite my attempts to stop him. Am I in some kind of bad dream? Instinctively, I pinched my cheek. It hurt. Unmistakably, this was reality. As I stood there with a pale face, Jason approached me, worried about what was going on. Kyle, what happened? Did Bill say something to you? Apparently, I'm fired as of today. I showed him the termination letter handed by Bill. Jason was even more shocked than I was, and remained frozen staring at it. This is ridiculous. There's no reason for you to be fired. I asked Bill for an explanation, but he gave me none. This is too much, even for harassment. Having Jason be so angry on my behalf was a relief. But I also felt incredibly guilty. I was supposed to handle this major deal with him, for the sake of his learning experience. I briefly explained the situation, and then left the company. Bill was probably eager to take over the major business deal he had taken from me. However, this was not a simple deal that just anyone could handle. The next day, Bill turned pale as a ghost when he learned the details of the deal. The reason was that the business partner was a French company, and all the documents were written in French.
What is this?
Holding the documents filled with French text, he shouted while trembling. He had a high educational background, but did not speak French, leaving him completely helpless. He couldn't decipher the documents, and all calls from the other party were in French. This was clearly not a situation he could handle. His work phone was filled with missed calls. If things continued this way, the major deal would fall apart. Recognizing Bill's inability to handle the situation, Jason stepped in to take charge. Jason is fluent in French, not only in everyday conversation, but also in business discussions. However, as he was still relatively new to the workforce, there was still some uncertainty. Jason handled communications with a trading partner while Bill managed other support tasks. In this way, Bill and Jason's makeshift team managed to hang on until the day of the business meeting. The two arrived at the partner company's office, entering with nervous expressions. Hey, Jason, I really can't handle French, so I'm counting on you. There's no need for you to be nervous, Bill. What do you mean? Well, you'll see it soon. Let's go. They checked in and entered the negotiation room. What awaited there was the business partner. The surprising thing was the person sitting in the seat. Upon seeing the face of the person sitting at the partner's table, Bill was shocked. What, it's you, Kyle? Yes, the ones waiting in the conference room were the foreign business partner and another person, Kyle. It was me. The appearance of a person who had been fired obviously disturbed Bill. Moreover, since I was sitting at the partner's table, his confusion was even greater. While Bill was understandably upset, Jason greeted me calmly. Kyle, I'm looking forward to working with you today. Likewise, I'm counting on you. What? Wait, Jason, did you know about this? In contrast to the flustered Bill, Jason and I were completely calm as we exchanged in conversation. Leaving the frantic Bill behind, we began the negotiation. I used to work in a managerial position at the company that is now their partner of in this major deal. Currently, we are at the US branch office, while I used to work at the headquarters located in France. I had no plans to return to the US, but an unexpected situation arose. My parents fell sick, and I needed to temporarily return to take care of them. As a result, someone introduced me to a job while looking for employment in the US. This person was Brad, Bill's father, who had declared my termination. Brad and I had met while working at the US branch. Through this connection, he introduced me to the company from which I had recently been laid off. Bill, his son, was unaware of this fact. After being fired by Bill, I decided to work again at the US branch where we were currently sitting. Thanks to my track record at the headquarters in France, I quickly assumed a significant position within the company. As a result, here I was, appearing as the business partner for Jason and Bill. When I resigned, Jason had already been informed about the whole sequence of events. Therefore, he was not surprised to see me sitting as their clients. Bill, who doesn't speak French, turned pale when I showed up. Despite the business meeting about to start, he couldn't utter a single word. The door to the business meeting room suddenly opened as the conversation in French continued. When Bill looked back towards the door, he saw his father, Brad, standing there.
What, Dad?
Bill's confusion deepened with the appearance of his father. However, everyone except Bill had been informed of this situation in advance. One reason was that his father wanted to see how his son would handle a major transaction. Another reason was to meet with me. Brad had always treated me well since we first met. Bill, his son's contemporary, greatly admired my international success. We often dined together, maintaining a personal relationship. Apparently, when he heard that I would be discussing business with his son, he couldn't sit still. So, he came rushing over to the scene. I also had something I wanted to tell Brad. Brad, I have something to report about your son's behavior.
Did Bill do something?
Your son usurped a major transaction midway and irrationally fired me.
What?
At that moment, I pulled out a voice recorder. It was secretly recording when Bill had declared my termination. Having been harassed previously, I had been gathering evidence to report to the upper management. On the day I was suddenly summoned by Bill, I had a bad feeling and discreetly carried a voice recorder in my pocket. I never thought it would come in handy at such a time. Please listen to this. I pressed the play button on the voice recorder. The unreasonable interaction during which Bill had fired me played out. Looking over at Bill, he was pale and sweating. He must have lived trying to hide his misconduct at the company from his father. But that is going to end today. There's more, please listen. The various abuses Bill had hurled at me and other employees began to play one after another. Listening to them alone was enough to churn up unpleasant feelings. Brad listened to the end with a stern expression, glaring at his son. After all the recordings were played, silence filled the negotiation room. Bill, can you explain this? It seems I was wrong to ask our relative, President Bennett, to give you a job through connections. But, Bill seemed to be searching for an excuse, but he couldn't come up with anything. Justifying such a litany of abuses was impossible. I'll contact President Bennett myself, and you will be fired.
What?
With a reaction more fitting for a cartoon or anime, Bill was shocked. He had never imagined that he would be the one getting fired. Moreover, for it to happen during a negotiation with a client was beyond any prediction. Seemingly giving up on finding an excuse, he finally apologized on the spot. "I'm sorry. I got carried away because I got my job through connections and moved up the ladder. It's too late now." "Don't say that. Come on, Kyle, persuade him too. Why should I, who was fired by you, have to defend you?" Instead of saying anything, I simply looked at Bill with disdain as he apologized.
I'll contact you later about the termination. Sorry for the interruption. Please continue with the negotiation.
Brad apologized and then left the conference room. Bill, with pale-faced, was unable to move. "So, what are you going to do, Bill?"
Huh?
"Are you going to continue the negotiation, or would you prefer to leave the room? Choose whichever you like." After a few seconds of thought, Bill stood up and left the room. "I'm sorry for the disturbance. I know this has been a series of unexpected events, but let's resume the negotiation," Jason said without any sign of panic, calmly continuing the conversation. Though inexperienced and unfamiliar with many aspects, he had made meticulous preparations for this transaction. "Before I was fired, I was also in charge of this transaction with Jason, so I understood it well." Even if his negotiation and presentation techniques were still immature, his earnestness came through. As a result, he managed to deliver a memorable presentation that impressed his business partners. Afterward, the negotiation went smoothly, the contract was signed, and Jason was assigned to handle it. What seemed like a doomed major transaction when I was fired, thus ended in great success. But let's change the subject and talk about what happened to Bill afterward. His father reported to President Bennett, a relative and the company owner, about the numerous abuses Bill had inflicted on his subordinates. President Bennett, who was completely unaware, was furious. Without any debate, Bill was terminated and left the company sobbing. Having been disowned by his own family, Bill, who had neither connections nor a place to go, was at a loss. With no significant savings, he quickly found himself in a dire financial situation as an unemployed individual. While his education made finding new jobs initially easy, the reality was that Bill had nothing but his education. When he started working, his incompetence was so apparent that he resigned within a month. After repeating this in dozens of companies, rumors spread within the industry, and no one was willing to hire Bill anymore. Bill was kicked out of his apartment because he was unable to pay his rent, so returned to his parents' home in desperation. He begged to stay at his parents' house, but it was too late. Bill was unceremoniously driven away, completely losing his place in the world. He's managed to find a part-time job at a convenience store and is somehow making ends meet. He's living in a run-down apartment, and his salary has drastically decreased from when he was in management. His life soon went out of control due to the fact that he continued to live a lifestyle no different from his old financial habits. He's heavily in debt with consumer finance loans, and it seems like he's in deep trouble. Apparently, he's also borrowed from shady lenders and now lives in fear of aggressive collection practices. In a complete reversal of his managerial days, he now experiences days of being verbally abused by debt collectors. Hearing this through the grapevine, I couldn't help but think that there's such a thing as instant karma. Meanwhile, Jason, despite his initial inexperience, successfully executed the big transaction and rapidly climbed the corporate ladder. Within less than a year from that negotiation, he achieved the remarkable feat of being promoted to department head. Now, he has grown into a respected professional, relied upon by subordinates, colleagues, and superiors alike. I am convinced that my decision to choose Jason as my partner for that major transaction was correct. I continued working at the trading company's U.S. branch. Maintaining a good relationship with Jason, we continued to support each other as reliable trading partners. One day, I went out for drinks just with Jason. That negotiation was quite a mess, wasn't it? By the way, why were you fired? I heard later from Bill's father. It seems it was all out of jealousy. Jealousy. He couldn't stand that someone like me, without a prestigious degree, was admired by his subordinates. To fire someone over something like that, it's beyond unreasonable. That's why he's living a terrible life now, as karma for his actions. I see. Jason nodded in understanding and took a satisfying sip of his beer. Although I don't have an academic degree like Bill, I was able to study a lot. It's hard to say my family was wealthy, but I often received books since I was a child. Thanks to that, I became proficient in French, which led to my current job. For that, I really can't find any words other than gratitude. Nowadays, I'm taking care of my parents whose health has declined, working while continuing to provide care. Honestly, it's not easy at all, but I've never thought about giving up. Rather, I see it as a chance to repay them for raising me. After all, the best thing is for them to stay healthy, so I can't help but wish for their well-being. Due to the demands of my job, I often travel around the world. If I had to describe my life in one word, it would be exhilarating. Jason, although we're at different companies now, I still think of you as my partner. It's an honor to hear you say that, Kyle. Jason, like me, doesn't have a formal education, but he's diligent and passionate about learning. That's why we were able to succeed in this transaction. Let's aim to make such an impact that it feels like we've turned the world upside down. It's a big-scale vision, but if we're going to do it, we have to go all out. Inspired by my determination, Jason reached out his hand. I grasped it firmly, and we made an unspoken vow to become the best businessmen in the world. With such thoughts, our enjoyable evening continued. Tomorrow, the routine of going to the office will start again. I'll give my all in both work and personal life, I declared cheerfully and finished my beer in one go.
My name is Alex, a 40-year-old man. I've never had a girlfriend in my life. I'm truly unlucky when it comes to love. It's because I'm incredibly ugly. I started suffering from pimples when I entered middle school. I thought pimples was normal during puberty, but there were guys with clear skin around me. Thinking that cleaning my face thoroughly might make me a bit more attractive, I bought a face wash that was supposed to be effective against acne bacteria and scrubbed my face with a brush. But it turns out scrubbing face like that isn't good. I was supposed to wash it gently, enveloping it in soft foam. Due to friction, my skin was damaged and became even redder, resulting in a massive breakout of pimples. I originally had about 4 spots, but soon there were as many as 10 to 20, leaving my face covered in pimples. Arg! What's with all this pimples? It's disgusting, even to me. How can it be this bad? There was a classmate who was handsome, with smooth skin and tall stature. I wished I could be like him, but it was impossible for me. Because I'm not that tall and I have short legs. I was troubled by being called Pigfoot Man by the girls. I've been chubby since I was a child, and that didn't change as I hit my teens. No, maybe it's more accurate to say I was fat. Every time I ran, my belly would jiggle. I was definitely overweight. One girl said that short legs might be cute on a cat or a dog, but on me, it just made me an ugly guy with short legs, and she laughed. It's true, dachshunds and corgis, or munchkin cats with their short legs and waddling walk, are adorable. There was a family in the neighborhood that had a dachshund and a munchkin, and I thought they were cute when I visited them. But no one thinks I'm cute with my short legs. It might look adorable when a short-legged animal runs earnestly, but when I run, it just looks ridiculous. That a chubby man with short legs is running is nothing but a joke. Even with shoes that were supposed to help me run faster, I was still the slowest. So, I was the laughingstock at sports festivals, and I felt humiliated. I have zero athletic ability, so I ended up falling during a relay race. It was customary for the fast runners to participate, but a mean girl suggested, "I think Alex should do it," and everyone agreed, so I had to run. It was reluctant, but since everyone agreed, I ended up running in the relay. I spent those miserable middle school years without making any friends. My only friends were a stray cat that occasionally entered the schoolyard and the school's rabbits. I am truly a sad man. In high school, I was not popular either and lived as a nerd. The term nerd describes someone who is solitary and does not easily fit into groups. It's not an exaggeration to say that this word was made for me. The cheerful, outgoing kids in my class looked down on me and insulted me. But I thought things would be different in college, where everyone would be more mature and there would be no nastiness. Sure enough, by the time I started college, everyone seemed more settled down, and there was less overt nastiness compared to high school. It wasn't completely gone, but it was definitely more subdued. However, when I sat next to a girl in the cafeteria, she moved to a different seat. She said, "Ew, gross," which really hurt my feelings. Afterward, I managed to find a job and started working at a certain company. At that company, a colleague named Jason was incredibly popular. Jason was about 6 feet tall and had a slender, model-like figure. Plus, his face looked like he could belong in a boy band. He had a straight nose and his eyes were bright and double-lidded. His lips are quite small, yet they naturally have a very beautiful color, even without any makeup. It's similar to the lip color of actor Brad Pitt. In contrast, my face was a disaster. I have a flat nose, which people call a button nose. My eyes are tiny like clamshells, and people often asked if I was always sleepy. My mouth area has always been my biggest insecurity. I have what you might call severe buck teeth. Once, my mother took me to the dentist to see about getting them fixed, but after looking at the x-rays, the doctor said, "This is impossible." I was nearly in tears when I was told that I couldn't undergo orthodontic treatment due to ankylosis. Because of the ankylosis, the bones won't move, making it pointless to even put on braces. It would be the worst to pay a lot and still not have straight teeth. The case would not happen since everyone takes x-rays beforehand. Anyway, I was turned away at the door. I thought anyone could undergo orthodontic treatment, but realizing that it's not possible for some people, I had to give it up reluctantly. After all, I was turned down elsewhere too. I was devastated, thinking I would have to live with these extreme buck teeth forever. I didn't want people to see my worst feature, so I always looked down. Jason got married in his 20s and had 2 children with his wife. But I didn't even have a girlfriend in my 30s. And now, I'm 40. My parents are getting anxious and telling me to register at a marriage agency. But marriage agency is expensive, and I wonder if any woman would even consider someone as unattractive as me. I've given up on marriage and just go back and forth between work and home. Is this how my life is going to end? If only I had been born with a face like Jason's, I could have had the best life. Jason seems to have fun going out with his grown-up kids every week. Even at 40, he is aging well and has the vibe of a charming, mature man. He has few wrinkles, and he could easily be a model or actor if he weren't a company employee. But I'm just an ordinary old man. To make matters worse, my hair started thinning in my late 30s, accelerating my unfortunate appearance. It wouldn't be surprising if my hair soon looked like Homer Simpson's. To prevent more hair loss, I've been slathering over-the-counter treatments on my scalp. And since I was already overweight, I'm a triple difficulty of bald, fat, and buck-toothed. If I overcome this, I might be praised like Helen Keller, but who would praise me? There's a saying, don't assume you can always rely on your parents and money. It's quite true. As my parents have been spending a substantial amount of money on renovating our house. We weren't poor but not particularly wealthy either, and I might have to take care of them if their retirement funds run out. And my mom, who had me at 30, is now 70. My dad is 75, so it wouldn't be odd if he started to show signs of dementia. They live on their pensions, and although they still have some savings, I worry about what will happen if something goes wrong. As I live each day with a bleak outlook. One day, I was invited by a classmate to go to a mixer. It's a mixer for those over 35, often attended by people in their 40s. With the trend toward later marriages, especially in central New York, it's common to find many people in their 40s who are still unmarried. My classmate is a busy businessman who hadn't even had time to find a girlfriend. My classmate George is as handsome as Jason. However, their personalities are complete opposites. While Jason is handsome and kind to everyone, making him well-liked, George enjoys looking down on people. He was my college classmate, but I never really liked him. However, I went to the mixer thinking maybe I could find someone. But I quickly regretted it. George started belittling me in front of the women. What do you think of Alex's front teeth? Seriously, aren't they like a mouse's? Ha ha ha, it would be cute if he were a hamster or a guinea pig. But for a human, that's just bad. Must be tough eating, huh? Oh, but maybe it's handy for tearing into meat, like at a barbecue, right, Alex? Well. I guess. And look at this head. It's receding, man. Just like a dead tree, barely any hair left, it's bad. My hair is still thick. I bet it'll stay that way even when I'm an old man. Might even be thick in my coffin. Ha ha ha. Ha ha. And this belly. Like a drum. No one wants a bald, fat guy with buck teeth, right? Hilarious. Even though George is good looking, I thought it was unnecessary for him to mock me to that extent. It's not like I want to be bald or have buck teeth. I tried dieting because I thought I could at least do something about being overweight, but since it didn't work, I gave up. Being overweight is a matter of poor self-management, but the baldness isn't helped by over-the-counter medicines. And the buck teeth were something I had to give up on fixing as a child. So I really didn't want to be ridiculed for my head and front teeth. Then the truth or dare game started. First, we played rock paper scissors, George won, and he asked me to choose truth or dare, so I chose dare. Alright, Alex and Amy will text each other for the next week. I'm Amy. Poor Amy, having to text with such an ugly guy. Well. I don't mind. Come on, both of you, get out your phones and exchange contacts. Hurry up. I'm really sorry about this, you must hate having to exchange contacts with someone like me. No, not at all. And so, I exchanged contact information with a woman named Amy. George was probably grinning, imagining how one of the beautiful 40-something women would hate exchanging contacts with me. What a mean guy. George was hitting on other women. I was desperately apologizing to Amy. I'm really sorry that you have to text me. No, let's enjoy this, it might be fate. I'll text you later. I'm not used to texting much, so I apologize if I'm a bit awkward. That's alright. Just reply when you can. Then I went home. My apartment is a bit old and close to my parents' house. After taking a shower, I laid in bed and texted Amy. Then, Amy replied with a very cute emoji. My mother also tries to use messaging apps, but being older, she sometimes uses odd emojis. Amy used feminine emojis, and it made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Messaging a woman other than my mom was a first for me, so I was quite thrilled and kept looking at the app until I fell asleep. Amy and I have been texting each other daily since. We talk about what kind of lunch we had or a funny show we watched. Amy seems to like sweets, and she would send me photos of cakes and macarons she bought on her way home from work. I sent her photos of the houseplants I'm growing at home. Communicating with Amy is so soothing. I never dreamed I could interact with a woman like this. Oh, I want to see Amy again. But how should I go about it? A week had passed, so George's mandated period for us to text each other was over. But I still wanted to keep talking to Amy, so I asked if it was okay to continue texting. To my delight, Amy responded, of course. Why don't we go out for a meal sometime? Whoa! A meal. A meal with a woman, just the two of us. Oh, my heart is pounding. What should I wear? Something that doesn't accentuate my belly? Right, cleanliness is key, so maybe I should ask a store clerk to help me pick something. I asked my coworker Jason for advice on which store might be good. Generous Jason suggested Maison Dandy, a select shop. Whenever we gather for company outings on weekends, Jason always looks incredibly stylish. Casual yet clean, not too young but definitely cool. So, thinking I could also become a stylish older man like Jason, I hurried to Maison Dandy. The clerk was a handsome man with a beard and another who looked like a tall model. Despite my unattractive appearance, they served me courteously and chose clothes that suited me well. I bought a jacket, some innerwear, slacks, and leather shoes, which amounted to a shocking total, but it was all for my meal with Amy. So, I paid with my card and left the store. Back home, I tried on the clothes and was grinned to myself. I'm no stylish older man like Jason, but I look decent enough. I thought this would make it less embarrassing to meet Amy. I'm sure Amy will think I look decent too. Yeah, have some confidence, man. And then the day of our appointment arrived. We had arranged to meet at Grand Central Station, but I was so nervous that my palms were sweaty. Just then, I heard Amy's voice from behind. "Oh, sorry to keep you waiting." "No, I just got here too." Actually, I had arrived an hour earlier, but I quickly told a lie. Because I didn't want to make Amy feel uncomfortable. "Shall we go then? I've booked an Italian restaurant." "I'm sorry for leaving everything to you even though I'm the one asking you first." "Not at all, I was happy just to have a meal together, so it's no trouble at all." "I hope you like it." Hey, I'm curious about the restaurant." As we entered the Italian restaurant, a delicious aroma greeted us. It was a fancy place serving course meals, a setting I'd never been to with a woman before. I had been to nice restaurants for company entertainments, but enjoying a course meal in private with a woman was a first for me. While we were enjoying the appetizer, someone came in and sat next to us. Turns out, it was George. He had brought the woman he met at the mixer, and I deeply regretted booking the same restaurant. I feared he might say something unpleasant again. And sure enough, George looked over at us and laughed. "Amy, you can't enjoy your meal with such an ugly guy, can you? The food must taste awful. You should have come with another man." And to think, not only did you keep texting after that, but you're actually on a date? That's crazy. But look at him eating with those buck teeth, it's gross, right? Well, do as you like. The woman with George, Kate, also smirked, which made me feel awful. We weren't bothering anyone, so I wished they would just leave us alone. Even so, Amy provided me with plenty of topics to talk about, which made me happy. She asked about what I do at work and what my hobbies are. Amy didn't just like sweets, she also enjoyed making jewelry. She used resin to create accessories and sold them on a flea market website. She showed me photos, and they were professional level pieces, which surprised me. That's amazing. You can make such things. You're really skilled with your hands, Amy. Thank you. But I've been so busy with work lately that I haven't had much time for hobbies. If I had more time, I'd love to make more accessories. Being busy can be tough. By the way, when is your birthday, Alex? Me? Yes, I also make accessories using stones, not just resin ones. Look. Wow, these could be sold in a shop. Oh, mine is in June. Then, it's moonstone for you. If you'd like, I can give you a moonstone accessory for men. But, you're using gemstones, right? They're expensive, and it's a waste. Something so nice for someone ugly like me. It's like casting pearls before swine. What? I don't think so at all. I find you very charming and wonderful. Ha? I was momentarily stunned, and I gave a deflated reply. I never thought the day would come when someone would call me charming and wonderful. Moreover, by such a beautiful lady. Amy is 35 years old, which is younger than me, but she looks even younger. She could probably pass for about 30 years old and nobody would know. Being called these things by the beautiful Amy made my heart race. Later, when I met Amy again, she gave me the men's accessory. I kept it in my bag as a charm. By this point, I couldn't think of anything but Amy, and she filled 99% of my thoughts. Oh, I just wanted to confess my feelings. Thinking this, I dressed in my best outfit and called Amy to meet up. Amy, there's something I want to talk about. What is it? Well, I can't help it anymore, I'm madly in love with you. Please, would you go out with me? Really? Is it okay? Ha? I was wondering when you'd confess. What? You were? Yes, I like you too, Alex. She likes me, she said she likes me. For the first time in my 40 years, someone other than my parents had told me she liked me. I was so happy I felt like dancing on the spot. And so, Amy and I became a couple. After dating for 6 months, I started thinking about the future. I wondered if we should date a bit longer before getting married, but I'm already 40. Amy isn't very young either, and it seemed better to make a decision sooner rather than later. Even if we broke up, she could still find someone else. Amy is beautiful, and if things didn't work out after dragging on, she could definitely find a wonderful man. I was scared, but I decided to gather my courage and propose to Amy. I carefully chose an engagement ring and bought a bouquet of roses. It might seem silly for a bald, fat man with buck teeth to do something so romantic, but I wanted to surprise her in my own way. I invited her out as usual and called her to a certain spot on a Saturday. I approached Amy and handed her the bouquet of roses. Wow, what beautiful roses! What's this for? Today's a surprise. A surprise? What are you going to do? Look at this. I want to give this to you. Basically, I want to marry you. Amy, please marry me. I may be ugly, but I love you more than anyone. I will always cherish you, so please, marry me. Alex. I'm so happy. I've never felt this loved before. Thank you for accepting. Let's build a wonderful life together. And with that, we decided to meet each other's parents. First, Amy came to my house. My parents were thrilled, saying things like, "We're so happy to have such a beautiful daughter-in-law, and you've done well, Alex." My parents must be relieved now. They don't exactly want a daughter-in-law for caregiving, but they were worried only about me. They must have thought I'd never find a girlfriend, lacking any charm, and would end up living alone forever. Lately, there have been stories on TV about elderly people living alone. And they were genuinely worried about me ending up lonely and dying without anyone knowing. Next, it was time to visit Amy's parents' home. Amy's house turned out to be quite a mansion, which intimidated me. It was so spacious, I wondered how many times bigger it was than my parents' place. When I pressed the doorbell, her mother came out. I'm not actually married yet, so they aren't really my in-laws, but for simplicity's sake, I decided to refer to them as my mother-in-law and father-in-law in my mind. Welcome. Oh, you must be Alex. Ah, come in. Thank you very much. She paused for a moment when she saw me. That's understandable. If their precious daughter's fiancé turned out to be a bald, fat guy with buck teeth, they'd surely be shocked. They might even seriously worry about their daughter's judgment. Let me get you something to drink. We have iced tea, iced coffee, and hot tea and coffee. What would you like? Ah, I'll have an iced tea, please. I'll have hot tea. All right. I opted for iced tea because I was feeling overly hot from my nerves. In the meantime, my future father-in-law came down from upstairs. He is already here. Ah, sorry about that, I was looking for my glasses. I am Alex, dating your daughter. Is there something wrong? I panicked, thinking there might be something on my clothes or my thinning hair. Because he was looking at me very intently. Your father, could it be? Yes, my father? Wasn't he a policeman? Yes, he was, but how do you know that? Actually, I was helped by someone a long time ago. You look just like him. What? When I was younger, I used to play basketball with my friends in a busy area. Then, a car came. Ah. He saved me at the last second, but he got injured. I felt terribly sorry about it. I've heard about that incident from my father. I had no idea it was you. My father is now 75 years old, but Amy's parents are still quite young, around 55, as Amy told me. It seems they got married while still students and then had Amy. While raising children, my mother-in-law graduated from a women's college, and my father-in-law was a dedicated sales professional, also helping with childcare. Later on, my father-in-law started his own company, which apparently grew to generate an annual revenue of $10 million. He's a very impressive man. My face, in fact, is the spitting image of my father. The small eyes, low nose, and buck teeth are all traits I inherited from him. My mother is very beautiful, and I often wondered why I hadn't inherited even a single trait from her. It is said that boys often resemble their mothers, but I don't look like her at all. Sometimes when I walked with my father, people would say we looked exactly alike, but I always thought that meant we were both equally unattractive. Yet, despite his unattractive features, my father was a man of brave deeds. My father-in-law was a naughty boy at 15, spending his days immersed in basketball. He was playing basketball with friends at the park when the ball bounced onto the road, so he went to pick it up. However, he nearly got hit by a speeding car that suddenly appeared. At that time, my dad, who was 35 years old then, rushed over and narrowly saved my father-in-law. Watch out. Whoa. Are you okay, kid? Yeah, but are you okay, sir? Your uniform is torn. Yeah, I'm fine. But make sure you check the road before you go after the ball next time. Okay, shouldn't you be in an ambulance? It's just a scratch, and I didn't hit my head, so I'm alright. But I need to check on that car later, it wasn't obeying the speed limit. Ouch. Sir, you're so cool. Being a police officer really is amazing. Really? Yeah, it's a wonderful job protecting everyone. Thank you, sir. There's a significant age gap between our parents. My father-in-law was still kids when my dad already started to work. Man, I was really saved back then. If your dad hadn't rescued me, I might not be here today. That's true, and maybe that's why he always cautioned me about the roads. Like, don't dash out, and be careful crossing. I wonder if your dad was okay after that. No after effects, I hope? From what I've heard, he's fine. My dad is sturdy, and at 75 he's still going strong. Being a police officer, he kept himself in good shape. That's good to hear. Well, that was quite a story about your dad, Alex. He's really a brave man. Ah ha ha. Sorry for judging you by your looks at first. No harm meant, just reminded me of Amy's ex-boyfriend. Ah, her ex-boyfriend? Amy, haven't you said anything? No, I'm sorry for keeping quiet, Alex. Actually, I was engaged to someone before. Really? Yes. He was as handsome as a model or actor, very stylish and gentle. We were engaged, but then I found out he was cheating. That's terrible. What a terrible guy. Yes, he really was. When I confronted him, he got angry and did something terrible. It was so scary. I thought I couldn't live like this and consulted a lawyer. Eventually, the engagement was broken off due to his cheating. After that, I decided to look for someone whose inner qualities mattered more than their looks. That's when I met you at a mixer, and at first, we just exchanged contact info for formalities. But as we kept in touch, I really fell for you and was so happy when you proposed. I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier about the troubles with my ex. Don't worry. Everyone has one or two secrets they'd rather take to the grave. I want to take extra care of you, since you've been hurt before. I might not be as tough as my dad, but I'll protect you in my own way. Alex. Ah, I see you are a very reliable man. Please, would you take my daughter? She can be a bit clumsy at times, but she's very dear to me. I've learned that it's what's inside that counts. I was wary at first, thinking what if she brings another weird guy? I'm sorry, Alex. But I think you'll be the best husband. Please take good care of Amy. No. I'm not sure if I can be a good husband, but my love for her is unmatched. I promise to cherish her and make her happy. I was truly happy to be accepted by my in-laws. It seems Amy had a tough past, but I want to make up for her sadness. I hope I can make her laugh more and be happier with me. I'm definitely not handsome. I'm bald, overweight, and have buck teeth, so I never thought I'd be popular with anyone. But having a girlfriend for the first time, I've realized how precious the time we spend together is. Amy and I immediately got married and then held our wedding ceremony. With the help of our in-laws, we managed to have our wedding at a 5-star hotel in New York. I even invited my classmate George, but he was sulking because he was cheated on by Kate and said he wouldn't come. He always mocked me for not being handsome, but it must irk him that such a good-looking guy got dumped. I guess he's jealous that an ugly guy like me could be happy, but I don't need to bother with him anymore. Colleagues from work also came to the wedding. The friendly Kyle performed a song for us. Kyle sang a Johnny Depp song, and not only did his voice resemble him, but he also looked somewhat like him. I'd like a face like Kyle's if I were reborn, but I'm grateful that Amy chose me even though I'm not handsome. Amy was 35 and worried she might not be able to get pregnant. But a year later, she did get pregnant. I was 41 by then, and Amy was 36. I was thrilled at the thought of becoming a father, and I tried listening to Amy's belly. I could hear the baby moving inside her growing belly. The baby seems to be quite mischievous. I wondered if it might have inherited that trait from my mischievous father-in-law. Then the baby was born. It was a slightly large boy. My wife, Amy, was in perfect health, and I was relieved. Our son is growing up fast. I'm over 40, so I wasn't sure about my stamina for raising kids. Still, I make sure we go out to theme parks or shopping on weekends to have fun as a family. I never thought I'd see such happy days. It feels like a dream. My parents keep buying toys for their adorable grandchild, so our house is overflowing with our son's toys. However, I caution them not to spoil him too much as it's not good for his education. Even an unattractive guy like me can find happiness, so surely everyone has the right to be happy. To all the middle-aged men who think they aren't attractive and are struggling right now, if someone like me can get married, stay courageous and confident. Whoa! Oh! Wait! As I walked away from the bus stop, I heard a frantic voice from behind and saw a woman rush past me. However, the bus, now displaying not in service, didn't notice her and continued to drive away. I could see the woman standing there, utterly stunned. Is everything all right? As I called out to her, she began to cry. I'm Alex, a 25-year-old office worker. All right, time to wrap things up. See you tomorrow. It's 7 p.m. I have to do some shopping before heading home, so I call out to a colleague who is still there and leave the office. It's a very pleasant place to work with no overbearing bosses or difficult colleagues. It's close to the station, which makes it very convenient to commute. That said, the apartment I live in requires taking both a train and a bus to get to. This is because I still live in the one I rented during my college days. It's an old place, hot in summer and cold in winter. But it's much cheaper than living near the office, and I can save money, so I don't mind. My one-bedroom apartment has a decent-sized bedroom and living room, just perfect for someone single like me. I enjoy the peaceful atmosphere surrounded by fields and farms. I normally take the train from the station near my office, and once I get off at the station, I take the bus. But today, before I got on the bus, I stopped by a supermarket located 2 blocks away from the station. I love this store because they discount many items in the evening, and I can buy fresh vegetables cheaply. I've been cooking for myself since my student days. I lived at home until I finished high school and loved the packed lunches and dinners made by my mom. Coming home tired from extracurricular activities, I'd smell something delicious even before reaching the front door. If it smelled like stew, I would enter the house with a fist pump, excited. Though it's not as good as my mom's nutritious meals, I think I've gotten pretty good at cooking. Stop eating out all the time and take care of your health, my mom would occasionally tell me over the phone or in texts. But when I send her photos of my cooked meals, she replies, not bad at all. Life is monotonous with work and cooking at home, but I'm quite enjoying living on my own. One Friday, a colleague asked me to grab a drink with him after work, so we stopped by a bar near the office. After about 2 hours of listening to him, I left for home. As usual, I took the train and then the bus. My apartment is at the last bus stop. A good thing is I don't have to worry about missing my stop. I sat in the back seat, slightly tipsy that day. Halfway through, I let myself relax to the comfortable sway of the bus. This is the last stop. Please be careful as you get off. As I walked past the woman sitting in the middle of the bus from the very back seat, I heard her exclaim in a small voice, "Oh." Glancing at the woman, I saw her hastily getting up from her seat. She must have been dozing off. Although she was a stranger to me, I thought to myself, she must have had a tough day as I walked towards my apartment. Whoa! Oh! Wait! A few steps later, I heard the bus engine and the woman's voice again. At the same time, the sound of her heels clicked rapidly from behind. The woman I had just ridden with sped past me. She seemed to be chasing after the bus, which now displayed not in service. But the bus was moving further away. And she stopped. I thought I heard a faint voice say, "What should I do?" The distance between me and the woman was closing. Looking around, I noticed there were no other people besides me, but I wondered if she would be scared if a man approached her. However, I couldn't just ignore her being in trouble. "Is everything all right?" I asked her, keeping a slight distance. She seemed dazed, standing still, but when I looked closer, I saw tears in her eyes. "Are you okay?" I blurted out, surprised, a bit louder than intended. My bag, what should I do? I can't take this anymore. She suddenly burst into tears, and I was at a loss, but I tried to calm her down and listen to her story. Apparently, she had left her bag on the bus. The bag contained her purse, phone, and keys, and all she had on her were a prepaid travel card with electronic money in her coat pocket and a paper bag she was carrying. Why does this always happen to me? As we talked, her tears stopped, but she was gaping and her shoulders were slumped. Also, where are we? She looked around anxiously and asked. I got on the bus from the same number 2 bus stop from the station as yesterday, but I found myself in an unfamiliar place. I always get off at the last stop. I was a little tired and fell asleep when the bus left. Hearing this, I remembered something. There are 2 bus lines that leave from the number 2 bus stop at the station. Apparently, she moved here just last Sunday and wasn't aware of that. While we understood how she ended up in an unfamiliar place, we now needed to figure out what to do about the bag she left on the bus. The bus had been marked as not in service. That means it probably returned to the bus depot at the station. I should go back to the station since I have a prepaid travel card. She said, but this is the countryside. In the late hours, there might only be 1 bus per hour. Wondering when the next bus would be, we walked to the bus stop on the opposite side, but unfortunately, the last bus had already left. No way, what should I do now? The woman's shoulders drooped, and I shared in her dismay. The next idea was to contact the bus company's office. The bus had just left, but it was certain that she had left her bag on it, so they should be able to tell us what to do. Since she didn't have a phone, I looked up the office's number and lent her my phone. But as she held the phone to her ear, she shook her head. The voice on the other end announced after hours. You'll have to check tomorrow. She went back to her uneasy expression as she was back to square one. If only I had my keys. I could take a taxi home, I have some cash at home to pay for it. Hearing that, I peered into my wallet. There are no hotels near the nearest station, but there are some 2 stations away. In such a situation, it would be right to lend her some money. Looking into my wallet, however, I only had $50. I mostly use my card, so I didn't have much cash on hand. This wasn't enough for a taxi ride or to pay for a hotel. If only I hadn't been drinking, I could have driven you home. I couldn't just lend her my card either, and as I was pondering this, I heard a distant voice calling, "Hey!" Looking towards the sound, it was my sister Sophie, arriving on a bicycle. I went to your place, and it was all dark, and I couldn't get through because the phone was always busy. And I figured you must have arrived by bus by now, so I got worried and came here. Sophie is a college student and lives alone in an apartment near her university, about a 30-minute bike ride from my house. Sophie was supposed to stay over tonight because I was going to drive her to meet her friends tomorrow. Oh, did I interrupt something? Who is this, Alex? She looked at us, grinning mischievously. That look. Sophie must think she's my girlfriend or something. I thought. Ah, sorry. It's a bit of a situation. I apologized to Sophie for worrying her and explained what had happened. Oh, I see. I thought she was someone you knew. Just a second. Oh, but I don't really have much either. While tilting her head, Sophie pulled out her purse from her bag. But true to her uncertain tone, there were only $20 inside. I was planning to withdraw some cash from an ATM tomorrow, so I don't have anything on me. We were indeed undependable siblings. Notably, there are no convenience stores nearby. One would have to drive a while before even finding an ATM. The woman looked anxious, unsure of what to do next. I was at a loss for words other than feeling troubled. The bus you were on was the last one, right? If so, your bag must still be on the bus, and there's no worry about someone taking it. So it will be fine. It will be returned tomorrow. Sophie said, but the real issue was what to do until morning. As I pondered another solution, an idea struck me. You can't do much without your keys at your house, right? Even if you could go to the depot now, you don't know if it's open. So, why don't you stay at our place tonight? Sophie suggested. Both the woman and I exclaimed, what? Let her stay at mine. Even if it were a man, but a woman we just met. Having never had a woman in my house, I was shocked by Sophie's suggestion. No, I really couldn't impose. I'll just start walking to the station. If I get there by morning, it'll be fine. The station is a really long way from here. And in this cold, with that outfit, you'll catch a cold. She was wearing a coat, but underneath it seemed to be a company uniform, and she was only in stockings and heels. She also appeared to be shivering from the freezing cold. You must be cold, right? It's not the fanciest, but please come warm up at our place. You say our place, but it's my room, and what do you mean by not fancy? I mentally retorted to Sophie but calmly thought about not leaving her out in the cold. I remembered a time when I was helped during my own troubles. In my first year of college, I impulsively went on a solo trip during a long break. I visited a quiet rural town, and while I took my eyes off my bag for a moment, it was stolen. I ran to the police station, but it was unattended. Overwhelmed by the situation, I was at a loss about what to do. At that moment, a man approached me and asked, "Are you lost?" After I explained my situation, he laughed and said, "You're out of luck," but invited me to his home for food and even provided a bed. I was panicking then and was truly saved. I remembered thinking then that I should pass on the kindness I received someday. Now was definitely that time. My sister is here too, so please feel free to stay with us if you're okay with it. Though it might be scary for her to be alone with a man she doesn't know, with my sister there shouldn't be a problem. Initially she hesitated, but she agreed to come to our place after my sister persuaded her. I'm really sorry to impose. Thank you for helping me. Please, make yourself at home. Sophie took the lead and guided her into the apartment. Once inside, she started boiling water to make some warm drinks. Seeing her confidently prepare the mugs, I wanted to joke, "Is this your house or what?" But honestly, I was glad she was there. I wouldn't have known what to do on my own. However, it was the first time I had let a woman into my apartment. I was glad I tended to keep it reasonably clean, often vacuuming, but that small relief was short-lived. I glanced at the living room and noticed the pajamas I had taken off in the morning were still on the floor. I picked them up in a hurry and carried them to the laundry area. Returning to the living room as if nothing had happened, I swiftly dusted off the sofa with my hand and invited her to sit, saying, "Please, have a seat." But, unsure of what to do next, I began to fumble around. Seeing this, Sophie stepped in to give me directions. "Alex, do you know where I keep the clothes I use as pajamas?" "Lend them to her." Prompted by her words, I searched for my sister's clothes. She often stays over or drops by when she's free, and she had left some clothes here for those occasions. I casually picked up a sweatshirt and pants and handed them to her. Yet again, I found myself flustered. As I was wondering what to do next, I caught Sophie's exasperated look. "I haven't eaten dinner yet, so I'm going to make something." "Alex, could you get the shower ready?" "It's cold, so let's get her warmed up." "Right, of course," I replied, only with my expression. I realized she had witnessed our entire exchange, and I let out a sheepish grin. "I apologize for my clueless brother," Sophie said to her, and she replied with a light laugh, "Please, don't worry about me." Feeling embarrassed for showing such a helpless side, my stomach suddenly made a loud growling noise. As I thought, oops, a similar sound echoed from not too far away. "Eh?" She quickly clasped her stomach with both hands. Our eyes met, and all three of us burst into laughter. "I'll make extra," Sophie cheerfully declared. Funny, I had already eaten, I said, yet I joined in to help with the cooking. This eased the slight tension we had been feeling. After she came out of the shower, the three of us started eating while talking. Her name is Emily. She's 23 years old and just started working this year. We engaged in casual conversation about her job and other light topics, slowly easing Emily's tension. Although I couldn't help feeling a bit jittery about having a woman other than my sister in my apartment. I hadn't had a good look at Emily when we met because it was dark and we were rushed. But now I could see she had sparkling eyes and a very cute face. As Emily emerged fresh from the shower, her face without makeup was as radiant as if she had makeup on. It was impossible not to feel my heart skip a beat. Whether she knew it or not, Sophie continued to sit and direct me with commands like, "Grab that for me and bring this here." without moving an inch herself. Really, you're quite bold for a guest. Just so you know, I'm technically the elder brother here, okay? But it's so bothersome to move. Come on, you're the big brother, you should do it. Sophie replied lazily, a trait she's always had. Emily watched our banter, giggling like an audience to a comedy show. You two seem to get along so well, she commented with a smile. However, as I looked at her, tears began to stream down her face. I'm sorry. You two are so warm and inviting, it made me feel safe, she explained. The shock of forgetting her bag and the stress of the situation must have built up. Emily expressed how touched she was by our kindness to her, a complete stranger, and now that she could relax, her emotions overflowed. I quickly handed her a tissue. She dabbed at her eyes, wiping the tears repeatedly. I'm sorry, Emily said, forcing a smile, perhaps trying not to cause any more concern. Is something wrong? As I wondered what was happening, Sophie asked Emily. Emily was silent for a moment, then began, lately, everything I do seems to go wrong. She had graduated from college and found a job. Unsure how challenging work would be, she thought it best to live near her office and rented an apartment one station away. She chose a place with lower rent, but even those close to the station were expensive. She thought she could manage her budget, but living there turned out to be harder than expected with high utility bills, living costs, and student loan repayments. She hadn't lived there for even a year yet but decided to move out once the short-term lease penalty period had passed. She found a cheaper apartment quickly, though it was much further from work. Despite the distance, she liked the place and was determined to make a fresh start. Just as she was getting settled, she forgot her bag on the bus. Every time she tried to move forward, she faced setbacks, made mistakes, or broke something. Why does this always happen to me? She wondered, feeling like her spirit had finally broken. But her tears were not just about these setbacks. The work is also tough, Emily explained. She mentioned that the volume of work assigned to her is substantial, resulting in a lot of overtime. As a new employee, she's not allowed any slack, and her senior colleagues and bosses often say things like, "It's expected that you do this, and if you can't show capability, cover it with volume and time." Believing it's her fault she can't keep up, Emily arrives at work early in an attempt to learn and cope with her tasks. However, the workload keeps increasing, and some days she leaves only moments before the last train. On weekends, depending on the situation, she sometimes goes to the office voluntarily and works for free. It's physically and mentally exhausting, but she keeps going. Thinking she must endure because her senior colleagues do the same and she needs to cover living expenses. That's why the move was actually a positive event for me. I was trying to motivate myself and had been pushing hard these past few days, she said with a weak smile. Normally, Emily stays awake on the bus. But the day before, she had work to take home and had not slept enough. Tired as she was, she fell asleep within 10 minutes of the bus departing. She slept through to the final stop and, in her rush, left her bag on the bus. Realizing I had left my bag and watching the bus drive away just made everything feel overwhelming. When you two were so kind. Feeling human warmth again after such a long time just made me break down in tears. I'm sorry. I've rambled on with my dull story. But I'm glad I met two kind people like you, Emily said as she wiped her tears and smiled. Just lending me your phone was kind enough, but to be treated with such kindness, I really can't thank you both enough. It's fortunate that kind people like you approached me, she added. Feeling a bit embarrassed by her gratitude, I was about to respond when Sophie chimed in, "He's always been kind," and laughed. You know, when we were kids, he was always like this. One time in elementary school, I forgot my gym clothes at home. It was my first time forgetting something, and I was scared, so I went to his classroom during break. He ran all the way home to get them. Well, he snuck out of school, so he got in trouble with the teacher. And then, I think it was in middle school. Hey, stop it with these old stories. I cut in, embarrassed as my sister began to share more. He really is a brother to be proud of, Emily said with a smile, looking at me. No, not really, I replied, scratching my head in embarrassment, trying to play it down. That's why I ended up being such a spoiled sister, she said, drawing laughter with her quip. We talked until about midnight that day, after which Emily and Sophie shared my bed. I slept on the sofa in the living room. Even with the lights dimmed, I could hear their soft voices and laughter from the other room. Hoping she felt a bit better, I fell asleep feeling reassured. The next day, Sophie and I took Emily to the station. Her bag had been safely kept at the bus depot as lost property, and she was able to retrieve it without issue. "I'll come to thank you later," Emily said. Sophie waved goodbye with a "see you soon." Seeing her smile as she walked away made me feel good, and I smiled and waved back. After some time had passed, Sophie suddenly sent me a message, "We're all going out together soon." Since that day, I hadn't seen Emily. She had called once to thank me, but we hadn't spoken much after that. Despite sharing so much that one day, I had wanted to send her a text but never figured out what to say, and so never did. Yet somehow, Sophie had hit it off with Emily and they had been frequently in touch. Sophie had much better communication skills than I did, as I knew. I often wondered if I'd see Emily again and kept an eye out at the bus stop, but our schedules never aligned. Hearing that I would see her again made me a little happy. We confirmed the date and planned to go out together. The destination was a newly renovated zoo, obviously chosen by Sophie. It was Emily's idea to say thanks, but Sophie suggested they make it a day out, clearly because she wanted to go herself. Watching Sophie excitedly exploring the zoo, I couldn't help but think she was still such a kid at heart. "Sorry for dragging you along," I said to Emily, who walked beside me. Emily, who said she had fun for the first time in a while. It might just be her kindness speaking, but she still seemed to be genuinely enjoying herself. Today, Emily was dressed in a comfy hoodie, denim jeans, and sneakers. She kept it simple in color, and the boyish look suited her really well. "Actually, I quit my job." Emily looked somehow refreshed today. "It's all thanks to you two for listening to me so attentively." That day, after hearing about her work in detail, Sophie said, "Just quit that company." I told her, there's no need to suffer through work like that, and that seemed to have pushed Emily's decision. Also, Sophie had been sending her encouraging messages often, which Emily said made her happy. When I asked what she planned to do about work, she said she was currently looking for one. She didn't feel she could last until she found something else before quitting. She was also overly stressed and tired, so now she was taking some time off to rest. We took our time walking around the zoo, and then decided to go grab some food. We parked the car in the multi-story parking lot at the big station and headed towards the restaurant. Just as we were about to enter the place, Sophie exclaimed, "Oh, sorry. I just got an urgent call from a friend. They really need me, so I have to go. Don't worry about me, you two have fun. See you." Before we could ask her to wait, she waved at us with a smile and left. While being stunned, I received a text. "Alex, you can do it." Seeing that message, I realized I'd been set up. "Emily is your type, right?" Sophie had once asked. I tried to dodge the question, but she told me, "I can tell. I've seen all your crushes over the years." During that conversation, she was cheeky enough to say I wasn't assertive enough or that I was bad at conversation. But maybe I should be thankful to her today. Yet, suddenly being alone with Emily was nerve-wracking. I was stiff as a board when we sat down, and Emily laughed, saying I usually talked a lot more in front of my sister. But I'm a little nervous too. Seeing Emily's cheeks turn red, I felt my own cheeks heat up as well. To ease the tension, I brought up the job topic that I missed talking about earlier. "What kind of job would you like to get next?" Hearing that, she expressed her desire to get back into the design industry. "I've been looking at job listings, but I can't seem to find anything." She spoke with a sigh, but to my surprise, I blurted out, "My company is hiring." Emily's previous job was in web design. Coincidentally, I work in the same field. In my department, we had an assistant who had to quit due to family reasons, and we had been struggling to find a replacement. When I first met Emily, I thought she might be a good fit for our company. But since she might not want to return to the same field and we had just met, I hesitated to ask. Seeing an opportunity, I began to describe what it's like to work at our company. I emphasized how great our benefits are and that it's a very employee-friendly workplace. Of course, I couldn't make the decision alone. I passed her name to HR, and Emily went through the proper interview process and got hired. She started as an assistant, but she's aiming to fully qualify in her field. Now that Emily and I work at the same company, we often commute to the train station together. Spending more time together, it didn't take long for us to get closer. We both discovered that we enjoy cooking. Sometimes, we would exchange our lunchboxes. We also went on dates to try various cuisines, like Indian and Vietnamese food. After dating for 3 years, we got married. We moved from a rundown apartment we had since our student days to a condo. Come on, hurry up, Alex. Wait, don't rush me. You're the one who's slow. We're going to be late. We still have time. Why are you bossing me around? The usual banter between siblings started in the living room. While my wife is watching that, she couldn't help but laugh. Today was the day to take our wedding photos. For some reason, Sophie insisted on assisting. Seriously, why does Sophie have to come along? I asked her to. It's more fun and lively with Sophie around. My noisy sister is so close to my wife they might as well be the real siblings. The three of us headed to the studio. There, we changed into our photo outfits and went to a special location. That location was the last bus stop of the line. We chose this location for our photo shoot. It's a place full of memories. As we were about to take photos, Sophie popped her head between us. Why are you in the middle? Hey, I was there too, remember? I played Cupid for you and Emily, so I should be in this too, right? True, but not right now. My sister always knows how to make us laugh. Let's take a photo with Sophie too. Yay! I love you, Emily. Well, since we're here. We took one photo together, all smiling. Of course, we took some just the two of us as well. A simple rural bus stop. But for us, it's a significant place. I'll always make you happy. Yes. Under the blue sky, we took the perfect smiling photo. The photos, both of us and all three, now adorn our living room. That old geezer George is a total loser. I bet you're no better since he recommended you. I felt utter contempt for my boss, Brandon, who even ridiculed George, a long-serving and respected employee, turning him into a joke. I glared at Brandon's smirking face. What's with that defiant attitude? Well, whatever. Let's see how long you last. I will fire useless trash subordinates like you in a flash. In response to Brandon's irrational anger, I coldly retorted. Subordinate? Who said I was your subordinate? After that, I explained the real reason I came here, and Brandon's smug grin vanished, his face turning pale. My name is David. Although I'm still quite inexperienced, I'd like to share various lessons I've learned throughout my life. Born into a family of chefs who owned a restaurant, I grew up thinking that providing delicious meals for customers was what adults do. My dad was a chef specializing in Western cuisine, and my mom was a pastry chef. The restaurant they ran was a hidden gem locally known, with many fervent fans and repeat customers. Influenced by my parents, I developed a deep interest in cooking from an early age. I naturally came to think about becoming a skilled chef like my parents and eventually taking over the family restaurant. Looking back, my childhood up to my elementary school years was incredibly happy. I wasn't taken on fancy trips or to theme parks, but I was raised without hardships, surrounded by my parents' love and delicious food. I grew up fully content and entered middle school. In middle school, I joined the soccer team, and my parents always looked forward to watching my games, until one day. When I came home after soccer practice, I found my house on fire. Our house had the restaurant on the first floor and our living space on the second floor. Fire trucks were already there, and firefighters were actively trying to extinguish the flames, but the fire was too intense. And it wouldn't subside. My parents were carried out unconscious by the rescue team and rushed to the hospital, but it was too late to revive them. Unbelievably, both of my parents had left me behind and passed away abruptly. That day, I lost everything dear to me all at once. My beloved parents, our treasured restaurant, my cherished home. All were taken away by the fire. As a middle schooler, I was left with a profound sense of loss, utterly alone in the world. I had no relatives willing to take in an orphan child like me. What am I supposed to do now? Lost in despair, my middle school teacher, Mr. Carter, who kept me in his house temporarily, suggested a kind of orphanage where I could stay. Just as I was resigning myself to move to the facility, A middle-aged man visited Mr. Carter's house to see me. He introduced himself as George Parker. I was a regular customer at your parents' restaurant, not just as a patron but as a friend of your father for many years. This tragedy is deeply shocking and saddening for me too, as I've lost dear friends. I've been concerned about you, David. This regular customer named George seemed to have had a long-standing friendship with my father. Feeling completely desolate and alone, his presence was incredibly reassuring to me. It was as if George sensed the nuances of my distressed state as he continued speaking. David, I've known you since you were a toddler. I can't think of you as a stranger. What are you planning to do now? You can't stay here at Mr. Carter's forever, right? I honestly shared my situation. Yes, I was planning to officially move into a facility. George nodded slowly and then offered. If you're okay with it, why don't you come live with me? My wife passed away a few years ago, and we don't have any children. So there's plenty of room. Don't be shy, think of it as your own home. I gratefully accepted George's kind offer. From that day, I was taken in by George and raised as if I were his own. In the Parker household, I was given my own room and continued to attend middle school as before. George, in his mid-60s, had worked for a major food manufacturer for many years. George became a regular at my parents' restaurant initially because of his dedication to his work. He had been involved for many years in developing retort packaged foods, like hamburgers and other processed meat products. Whenever he heard of a good restaurant, he made it a point to visit and taste the food personally. His relentless effort led to the creation of many smash-hit products under his supervision. This is how he initially started visiting my parents' restaurant, eventually becoming close friends with them. Your father and I made a promise when he was still alive. Eventually, it became a shared dream between your parents and me. One day, George told me. Curious, I asked him what it was, and his answer intrigued me. It's about your father's exquisite hamburgers from the restaurant. We plan to fully commercialize them and launch them through my company. We wanted to let people across America, no, around the world, taste those delicious hamburgers. Among all the dishes my father made, the hamburgers were especially popular and highly praised. George lamented that he had promised to commercialize them, but unfortunately, my parents passed away before it could happen. Though George had witnessed my father making the hamburgers on several occasions, the recipe wasn't documented due to its proprietary nature. Additionally, all the collections of cooking ideas and other recipes had been lost in the fire. Hearing this, I felt compelled to help George. From a young age, I grew up watching my parents prepare and cook. I think I can remember how to make those hamburgers even without the recipe. More importantly, I ate them almost every day, and my taste buds remember the flavor. If it means preserving my parents' legacy and sharing their delicious food with more people, I'd like to help realize your dream. If you don't mind. I offered to help make his dream come true. Above all, it seemed like a necessary step for me to reflect on my precious memories with my parents and to keep looking forward in life. After that, I spent days and nights relying solely on my memory to recreate my parents' recipes. But it wasn't easy. Recreating the flavors that my parents had painstakingly developed proved to be a challenging journey, and success was hard to come by. George, whose project had once seemed doomed after my parents' death, was invigorated once again when it was revived. He moved the commercialization project forward within the company. However, just as the project was about to come to fruition, George was unexpectedly removed from his role. He was betrayed by another employee who took over as the project head. Facing such treachery and unethical behavior within the company, George suffered great mental anguish and became physically and emotionally exhausted. Concerned about him being disheartened, I decided to dedicate all my free time to recreating the hamburger recipe while attending a correspondence high school. George strongly advised me to follow a normal path through high school and college, but I didn't want to burden him further. Moreover, I felt I couldn't move forward in life unless I recreated my parents' flavor and fulfilled his dream. And finally, I succeeded in perfectly recreating the taste of the hamburgers from my parents' restaurant. And George managed to reach the point of commercialization. However, George was nearing retirement and couldn't be present at the company during the product's launch. I blamed myself, wondering why I hadn't recreated the recipe sooner. If only I had been a little quicker, I could have made his dream come true while he was still there. I sincerely apologized to him. Despite being a stranger, you took in an orphan like me and took care of me. I'm deeply grateful to you, George. I thought I could finally repay you by working on this recipe. I'm sorry, I just missed making your dream come true. To this, he simply smiled warmly and said, "Thank you for sharing this dream with me. I had a lot of fun and was happy just doing that. It's not your fault we didn't make it in time. You should focus on achieving your own dreams now. It's your turn to make them come true." He comforted me kindly and encouraged me to pursue my future. While attending the correspondence high school, I thought seriously about my future. And I decided on my path. It was to work at the major food company where he had dedicated many years. During the 4 years I studied at the correspondence high school, I had interacted with this company through him on several projects. Although it was a large corporation, it did not adhere to the modern standard of hiring only college graduates. They still reserved some positions for high school graduates. Thanks to his referral, I was granted an interview and successfully received a job offer. I was assigned to the product development department. Since I had already been participating in some projects with this section during my high school years, it was decided I would join them. Truth be told, my hiring and assignment were part of a major internal reform initiative at the company. But this was unknown to the staff below the board level. Assigned to the product development department, I made rounds to introduce myself to all the sections under its jurisdiction on my first day at the company. When I visited the product planning section, where George had worked until his retirement, I met the section manager, Brandon. He appeared to be in his late 40s. He was well dressed in a neat, stylish suit, but there was a hint of malice in his eyes as he looked at me. He sneered disdainfully as he received my greeting with a smirk, looking down on me. Unperturbed, I said to him, "I look forward to working with you." "Looking forward to it, huh? I don't think there'll be much interaction between us. You're just a high school graduate, aren't you? How did someone like you get into a big company like this? What kind of connections did you use to get in?" Though he looked fresh and professional, once he opened his mouth, all he did was belittle and mock me. I was convinced that people who feel the need to belittle others to feel superior are the most petty. So, I felt nothing but pity and contempt for him and remained silent. As I stayed quiet, he pressed on. "People like you, with your low education, don't belong in this company. You're out of your league. I heard you got in because of that old man George who retired last year. He was demoted to a regular staff position after I took over his managerial role." "Did you know that? If someone as incompetent as him recommended you, you must be pretty mediocre too." Brandon mocked and insulted George, a long-serving and respected employee. Annoyed by his disrespect towards George, I glared at Brandon. Then, Brandon snapped back in frustration. "What? What's with that attitude? Do you think such behavior is acceptable on your first day? You're just a high school grad, stupid. And utterly uncooperative. You're done. Well, whatever. Let's see how long you last. I make it a point to quickly fire useless trash subordinates like you." I thought it was about time. Looking coldly into the eyes of the irate and creepy Brandon, I declared, "Subordinate? When did I ever say I was your subordinate?" Brandon, utterly condescending, scoffed in response. "So the new guy is even less than a subordinate. Let me correct that to the bottom of the barrel." I refused to engage further in his nonsense. For my part, I must decline having a subordinate who embodies human trash like you. "I hope you resign soon," I retorted. Hearing my comeback, his face went blank for a moment, but then his expression turned into one of suspicion. "What are you talking about? You're a new employee assigned today, and moreover, hired right out of high school. If you mean you're not assigned to the elite product planning section, I understand, but why would I be your subordinate?" It was time to explain why I had come to greet him today. I have been appointed as the new head of the product development department as of today. Therefore, all the sections under it, including the product planning section which you manage, are under my supervision. "That makes you my subordinate," I explained. Upon hearing this, his face turned ashen. "Before George retired, I had been frequently visiting the company to finalize and perfect the recipe he had successfully pioneered for commercialization. I was aware of the cunning and dirty tactics Brandon had used to steal George's achievements and position himself as the project leader. The product I designed under George's initiative had already been adopted as a prototype in the menus of first-class meals on airlines and in luxury hotels. As a result, it had received high acclaim and had been a great success. Due to this popularity, there were already people traveling from afar to dine at this luxury hotel just for our hamburgers. Recognizing these achievements, the president and the board of directors had put forward a major personnel reform initiative. Although this food manufacturer had a long history, it had recently been outmaneuvered by competitors in terms of planning capabilities, causing the management team much concern. There had also been intense pressure from shareholders at the annual general meeting. The bold idea was to recruit young, talented outsiders like me for executive positions right from the start. Valued for the generic application of the hamburger recipe, I was the first to be appointed under this plan as head of the product development department. Of course, I made sure to report George's efforts and achievements in developing the recipe to the board. Until today, Brandon had been put in the dark. The sneer he had worn until a moment ago vanished, and standing before me, he looked stunned and pale as I delivered my final ultimatum. Brandon, your luck runs out today. Stealing George's achievements to advance your own career is despicable and unacceptable. Have some shame. You will soon receive a notice of your dismissal from the board of directors. He began to tremble and collapsed to his knees. As I had warned, a board meeting was convened soon after to discuss his fate. His deceitful actions, such as removing George from the hamburger commercialization project and claiming the achievements as his own, as well as his history of unjustly taking credit for the work of subordinates and colleagues, were brought up for review. Furthermore, his habitual harassment, verbal abuse, and bullying of subordinates came to light, leading to a unanimous decision for his dismissal without any consideration for leniency. He was fired and expelled from the company. My first major task as head of the product development department was to complete George's project. That is, to commercially produce and distribute the exact retort packaged hamburgers from my late parents' restaurant. Although the prototype had been a big success in first-class meals and at luxury hotel restaurants, the reaction from the general public was an unknown factor. George and I had our concerns, but they turned out to be unnecessary worries. Once commercialized and released to the public, my parents' restaurant's hamburgers quickly became a hugely popular product, leading to an increase in production. In no time, it became a best-selling mega-hit. George and my parents' long-held dream had finally been realized. On the anniversary of my parents' passing, I invited George to a dinner at the first-class hotel where he first achieved great success with his project. We indulged in many delicious dishes and fine wines. But the highlight was the hamburger from my parents' restaurant that he had produced. It was exceptionally tasty. It seems that this hamburger will soon be adopted in luxury hotels in New York and Paris as well. It's really a testament to your long-standing dream and passion, I said while enjoying a bite of the hamburger. George responded, No, it's all thanks to you for understanding and embodying our dream. The company has gained a great asset. With a rare talent like you, I'm sure you'll continue to fulfill the dreams of many more people. He praised me warmly. Despite the many challenges and hardships I faced, I felt for the first time that it was all worth it. Reflecting on it, I realized that none of this would have started without the hamburger recipe my parents left behind. It was a profound thought. Everything had begun from there. As George and I reminisced about my parents, tears mixed with our conversation. But I felt an increasing sense of motivation and responsibility for the future.